Hey, good afternoon, Kalpana. Welcome to the Clarity Chat.
Good afternoon, Jagdish. Cheers, and thank you
Yes.
for having me on the chat.
Hey, it's a pleasure and privilege, Kalpana. So, to
Mhm.
everyone who's watching it now, uh, here is a quick introduction of Kalpana. So, Kalpana was a group CIO at Edelweiss when she decided to hang her boots to focus full time on philanthropy. She is now a full time volunteer of ISHA Foundation, working at social outreach projects like Rally for Rivers. Kalpana is a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and securities law professional who has worked in Bombay Stock Exchange. She set up CDSL and modernized the exchange clearing house. She went abroad, returned for family reasons, was a successful technology oblique process freelance consultant before taking up the CIO role at Edelweiss. Here, she oversaw tremendous growth in the organization. So whenever I met her, she stood out as an elegant, poised, and always a nice fellow CIO with a great presence. We have been together at CIO Angel Network, so she's an angel investor as well. We'll discuss her secret sauce of a persistent, smiling, calming presence, and lot to learn from that. So we share, resonating views on spirituality and giving backs. Let's discuss these and her story of rising to the top in today's session. So welcome Kalpana to this edition of Clarity Chat. Before we start, here is a quick recap of the purpose of Clarity Chat for anyone who's first time on this. Okay, so here's Clarity Chat for everyone. This discussion over a cup of tea on everything IT. Um, but why? The purpose is of Clarity Chat is to decode the success equation of technology. As per research, only 17% of technology investments deliver on expected ROI. And it's for a few reasons which I understand. One is the complexity. In any other function, whether it's finance or HR, you are at a crossroad of an industry and a process. Whereas in case of IT, we cover all the business processes, right from finance, HR, manufacturing, compliance, and then anything that technology does has a people impact. So the complexity is fourfold compared to any other function. It's also a nascent management function. If you look at all the other functions, they are all at least 100-year old. Some of these like finance and manufacturing are more than 200, 300-year-old functions, starting from industrial age. Whereas IT really came out of the closet in the 90s, so it's just about 30-year-old function. And what we call as digital transformation is just about not even 10 years old function. So now we combine it with the next, element of complexity, which is technology has very high margins, so there is an intense sales and marketing effort, and intense competition as such. So it can get confusing, especially because of the asymmetry of talent, where 95% plus technology talent is on the supply side. That means with the technology providers and the system integrators. So if you combine all of these elements together, the multidimensional complexity in technology, being an ascent function, intense sales and marketing efforts, and the talent asymmetry, that kind of explains to you why the ROI on technology is achieved in not more than 17% of the initiatives. So that's where I derive the purpose of Clarity Chat is learning from leaders. It is still an art given the nascent um, nature of the field of IT management. So the science is not fully disseminated. Now the art is learned from accomplished artists, which are CIOs and thought leaders. And the format is through discussions on leadership principles to achieve positive technology ROI plus life lessons. And these are informal chats, so they cover a lot of things. including real questions in IT management and success, all over a cup of tea. So here it is, back to Kalpana. So Kalpana, welcome again.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Now, welcome to this experience sharing, decoding the art of finding ROI with technologies. You have gone down that road and you have left it too. Please share your life story with us, calling out some key inflection points which reveal to you the first principles of creating success with technology. And with you, I can also say as well as in life.
So I have not left the road. I mean, in a sense, I'm not in active
Technology road.
professional life, but technology continues to remain. And actually, who can not find ROI in technology? Or technology is there for all of us. I think it saved our lives in this current pandemic. So, but yeah, going back to your question. I mean, basically, if I were to look back and look at my growing up years and the recent, roles, um, nothing very spectacular when I was growing up. Just a usual childhood. Read a lot. Played out in the open because there were no gizmos, fortunately. So the growing up years were full of basically just assimilating a lot of information from books. um, I did commerce because my dad was a finance and an accounting person, just inspired by him, and I did finance by chance. So it's not that I was dying to become a chartered accountant or anything for that matter. But I think the biggest inflection point came for me when I lost my dad at the age of 22. He was my inspiration. He was a young person when he died. He was just 52, and he was a role model in my life. When losing him was one of the deepest things that has happened to me. Usually, I mean, being the oldest of the family, I mean, the siblings, obviously, a lot of responsibility, a lot of maturity came. But I went into a lot of mental suffering because I just couldn't wrap my hands around this loss. But it taught me an amazing lesson. And I think that was an inflection point also in my life, not only losing my dad, but I think the learning that came, that I realized that when I was actually immersing myself in helping people or working with people who were so underprivileged and required, I mean, they had nothing. So I started going out on medical camps to far off villages which had nothing, actually, with a set of doctors, Ramakrishna Mission. And I realized that when I was working with people who had nothing, and yet they were smiling, my suffering reduced. So this was the biggest lesson at 22 for me, that don't wallow into your pains. Pain may be inevitable, but suffering is not. So it was a huge amount of growth that happened at that time. Then I did my chartered accountancy, cost accountancy. I got married. But I somehow got interested in technology. And during that time, a little after my marriage, when I was still practicing as a chartered accountant, that when I said I want to learn, and I went into systems analysis and design because I basically wanted to learn technology more from solving business problems and re-engineering processes so that technology is best used. Those were early days of computerization in the stock exchange. I joined my family business of stock broking, actually, a little hesitatingly, but it was a need of the family. So I said, okay, let me do that. But otherwise, I was quite happy with my CA role. I was into practice. But anyway, those were early days of computerization. I'm talking about 1987. And stock exchange computerization was on. So I helped computerize the back office for my family business of stock broking. And that's when my early engagement with technology started. I just loved that experience. I saw the benefits it was bringing. It was like you were discovering something new. And then I went on to actually take a job in Bombay Stock Exchange, where luckily I got a good chance to. I was a part of the special projects team of the executive director. In fact, I took up that job only for that. So they were setting up CDSL at that time. It was a second depository in India. Meant a lot in terms of the business model, and it was trying to basically reduce the cost and bring a second depository, and interconnectedness between depositories was a big issue. And I mean, it was such a challenging project, and again a lot of learning. And this is when actually I learned large scale technology use. Luckily, my the team, the president at that time of Bombay Stock Exchange, and other team members, senior people in the team, I was new, I mean, I had just joined Bombay Stock Exchange, but the senior people had reposed a lot of trust. They gave a lot of room, a lot of learning, and I just enjoyed that experience. And of course, I went on to do more in helping in modernization of clearinghouse and many other projects which were more technology oriented, but at the same time were solving large business problems. So this was my early foray into technology. I have loved the experience. Then I went on to have more confidence, and then I went and joined iFlex. At that time, it was not taken over by Oracle. And I enjoyed my role there, but it had to be cut short because there was a family situation where I had to come back to India and go on a sabbatical. So that was a second inflection point. That here I was thinking that I wanted to now. I was in a technology company. I was trying to do something that I really felt was very important for me, or I was enjoying, and I had to go on a sabbatical. But again, very beautiful thing happened to me at that time. I got into ISHA Yoga. A friend of mine said that, I'm going to learn yoga. Do you want to come? And I said, okay. And I just experimented. I had a lot of free time because I was a sabbatical. And I did this program. And again, it was such a humongous, I mean, I had not expected anything big except bending and stretching. But here it was that I discovered what it is to just go inward. And then again, it was not easy for me to just put myself down and say, okay, fine, I'm on a sabbatical. I just started freelance consulting because the flexi timings helped with my family situation. And I had an amazing experience even here, wonderful clients, a lot of learning, different business problems to solve. So I worked with large investment banks, brokers, small brokers, but on their processes, risk management, trading technologies. I mean, even selling off broking, why broking is not. I have a friend now, he's become a friend, a client has become a friend, where we did an analysis for him and we just showed him how broking was not lucrative at all, the retail broking. And he sold that business and went into real estate, and he still thanks me for that. So it was an amazing experience. I think I went on and on doing more and more projects. I love the freelance experience. I love the different problems that came my way. And then I went on to join Edelweiss. Then I was ready because I could have taken up a formal job. The family situation had improved. There was no issue. And then I joined Edelweiss. And I think it was one of the best times that I could join Edelweiss it was 2010 when it was scaling up. And what a journey, like the scale up, not only in terms of each business scale up, but even foraying into different domains within financial services. So that again was a wonderful experience of learning. I was more comfortable with broking and broking related areas, but here I learned a lot on the credit side, on the life insurance business we set up. Then of course we set up many more businesses. And that was a wonderful journey of 9 years. But somewhere along the way, I think there was some part of me, and because I had already started practicing yoga, I was a part-time volunteer with ISHA and other NGOs. During that journey, I just felt that maybe there is something that I could do more in focusing on my inner journey. And if I could do something which made a big difference to people's lives. In financial services, I knew I was doing something which helped businesses and obviously end customers. But here then I was already starting to think that can I do something which is a little more meaningful and makes a difference to other people's lives. I got exposed to Rally for Rivers movement at that time, which had just been started in 2017 by Sadhguru. I was those years were just amazing in terms of I was working a full day in office and then going back in the night and starting my work at 8 p.m. On Rally for Rivers, and then sleeping at maybe 2 in the morning, and again going back to office. And then I think those about 4 to 5 months were just so energetic and inspiring. So then slowly those seeds, and then people asked me that when can you come in a little and do a little more. And then we started this project of Rally for Rivers in Maharashtra in Yavatamal district. And then I just thought that maybe I'll try 1 year. I took a sabbatical of 1 year from Edelweiss in 2019. And then in 2020, when the time came to go back, I just felt that maybe I wanted to continue what I was doing. And so here I am. I'm still, I'm a full-time volunteer with ISHA. I help out and support another NGO, which we have started with our friends called Mumbai Kidney Foundation. And I am again enjoying this journey. So, yeah. So this is
that's a phenomenal journey, and I noted down that line when you said pain is inevitable, suffering is not. That's such a deep message. And then learning technology by solving business problems, doing large scale technology at CDSL, and then when your career was soaring, you had to come back. So so one of the things that kind of threads through your career journey is very interesting career graph with many years, even freelancing between great corporate roles. Anyone is likely to get anxieties, as you know, from a soaring career with iFlex, you come to freelancing, and then again take this up. So and this was one of them was this family reasons, which you mentioned. So how did you handle the transition? Of course, you told about yoga, but take us a little deeper into those stories, including the one that you told me about, the Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
yeah.
That's one of my favorite books as well.
Yeah. So yeah, if I look back, see, actually, it is like this, Jagdish, that when you are living those moments, it doesn't appear to you like you're making some big decisions or some big choices. It is that life throws you a curveball and you just deal with it, right? I mean, how you deal with it is your problem. You can either deal with it in a manner which is like, okay, it's great, let me make the most out of it, or you can deal with it by complaining. But I just never felt that way. So, I mean, if you see right from CA practice to family business to working in as an employee in Bombay Stock Exchange to again iFlex to freelance consulting, then to Edelweiss, and then back to whatever, volunteering. Yeah, there were times when things happened and you took a call, whichever way. There was some anxiety. I wouldn't lie by saying, I mean, it will not be a truth if I had to say that, no, I felt nothing. Of course, there were moments when you felt that, oh, I wish it was different. But then the acceptance was, if the acceptance is a fatalistic acceptance to say, oh, this is the way it is, I can't do anything. Instead, if it is an active intelligence that is working, okay, let me make the most of whatever is available and let's see what works out. I think that actually helped me. And I do recollect that when I was young, I used to read a lot of Richard Bach and Franz Kafka and J. Krishnamurti and many other books. And one story definitely touched me. At that time, I was like heavily into Richard Bach. And, so Jonathan Livingston Seagull, I think most of us grew on such books, where the seagull is basically just wanting to break free there, because the seagull's story is basically just the food and the existence, just the what do you say? It was just a routine, just you eat, sleep, and like just a routine existence. Instead, it was more to do, the Jonathan Livingston wanted to fly where no other seagull had dared to fly. So I think these things are very inspiring. And I now definitely recollect one other book, which was Illusions from Richard Bach, which talked about some sea creatures. And I would read that part again and again in that book, where the sea creatures had just, you know, had only known, the only thing that they had known in life was to cling to the rocks, because that clinging was their way to the life. And the when they were resisting the current, they had learned that from birth, that the only way to do it is to cling to the rocks and resist the current. Whereas here one creature actually just breaks free, and it just says, I will let the wave take me wherever it I'm destined to go. And then you know how that creature just soars above, and then all the creatures who are clinging are looking up and saying, oh, a messiah has come. So it was just an ordinary creature, but he just let go. And these things stories stayed so much with me that I somehow, maybe even not very actively, thought about doing all that or emulating that. It just came as a part of my response mechanism. So I think that was one of it. And uh, I think overall, I mean, it sounds like a holier than thou, and I don't want it to be like that. It's just that I think I got lucky. Good things worked out, um, and I just seized all those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, connects so well with my own experiences. By the way, Richard Bach is a personal favorite as well. So I've got his entire collection,
Yeah.
whether the one Illusions two, and then even the recent ones where he talks about the ferrets and all that. So I don't miss a book by him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like so much connects. Like for me also being a mechanical engineer, and uh, then deciding not to plunge into IT when everybody in and around my class and everybody was going into IT. I decided, no, I'm going to stick to mechanical, and then somehow flew into into IT, and then and then became a CIO. So that's so. I think beyond the journey, the principles which worked for you, like in terms of letting it go, making the best out of whatever comes your way, um, and let the waves take me where they want to. That's so I would say. Uh, I learned so much from it, Kalpana, and resonates so much. So you want to talk about the time when you came back and started freelancing. What exactly happened that time in terms of your mother-in-law, and I mean, did you feel an obligation to really leave that career and all that, to leave a good
So
career?
there was a family situation in which I couldn't have continued to be in out of the country and not look after my aspects at home. So in some ways, I won't say that I was forced. I was not forced. I took that call that okay, now is the time when I need to be in this particular situation, and therefore I will not be able to have an active professional life, which demands a lot of time from me. So yeah, at some point there was a regret that oh, I have to do this, but at another point there was that okay, this is it. Oh, all right, life has many things in store. So I basically went on the sabbatical, and during that time I think I had a lot of free time. So I discovered a lot of new things in terms of, I mean, I read up things that I had never had the time to read earlier. Also, as I said, that somebody said yoga, and yoga happened to me. So I could have kept the bitterness, but I somehow just was not feeling that way. And one of the reasons I think is that my mother-in-law has been so supportive of me in my entire career. In fact, I owe my career to her. Like while my parents were very supportive, but one can understand that parents always are supportive for their children. But my mother-in-law, despite her coming from a very underprivileged background, like she lost her parents at a young age, so she didn't have a chance to educate herself. She married very young into a joint family where she was basically looked after only as a homemaker, and did not get her due in so many ways, I mean, traditional families. But despite all that, she was so emancipated and she was so supportive of me and all the time actually rooting for my success that I felt that whatever I do for her is so less. So there was never a question of ever feeling that, why do I have to, give up something, and which I knew was a short period in time. It was just that, it was just a blip. So I never felt anything. And I think I'm happy that I took that call.
No, that's really inspiring. That like what life gives you need not be an obligation. You just take it and run with it and make the most out of it. That's a great lesson. Whatever you get, whenever life throws a curveball at you, whatever you get, you make the best out of it. So, Kalpana, let me. I'm sure you inspire a lot of women professionals, and you have been. So, what has been it? What has it been like a woman professional? Did you feel a glass ceiling holding you back? And what's your advice to women trying to make a successful career? And maybe some interesting incidents where you felt different, where you were made to feel different.
So fortunately, when I was growing up, we were three girls and one boy. My brother was the youngest. We were three daughters. But my parents never made us feel that we were girls. Like we had the same aspirations. The questions at home would be, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to become? And the chores are divided between the girls and the boys. So there was never a discrimination. So I never ever felt while growing up that I was a girl. It is just that it's in your mind, right? I mean, so when I went on to do my CA, I went on to one firm, audit firm. It was a leading audit firm at that time, and I walked up to them and I said, "Can you take me, as an article?" So they said, "Oh, we don't take girls." So I said, "Oh, why?" So then they said, "Because we have a lot of outstation audits and girls don't travel." I said, "What made you feel that I will not travel? I will travel." So the boss at that time, one of the partners said, "Why don't you go and ask your dad?" At that time was not no mobiles were available, right? So I said, "Okay, I will ask him, but I know the answer that he's not going to tell me no. So why don't you take me?" So he said, "Okay, first you go and ask him." So next day I went back and told him that, yeah, my dad is okay. So he was quite surprised because when I asked my dad said, yeah, as long as you're taking care of yourself and you're confident about going out with boys only because you're the only girl, as long as you're fine, I'm fine. How does it matter? So when I told him, he said, wow, okay. And then that was the beginning of them taking girls in that firm. And then after me, a lot of girls joined. And believe me, I went on that outstation audit. There were only boys. And in my career so far, a touch wood, I have not met boys or men who treated me differently just because I was a woman. I'm very lucky. I won't say the world is like that. There are cases where people may not be the same, but I have been lucky that I have not faced this. So those were the early days. But even otherwise, like I mean, I was on audit at HPCL. HPCL was one of our large audits, and that time, when the March end happened, there used to be change in the excise duty, and therefore we had to take measurements of the crude tanks, measurement of actual stocks, and it used to happen at the 12 midnight on March 31st. And I used to be there on those tanks, going all the way to Chembur. Those are far off places. Of course, we had a team, but I mean, I was coming home alone in a cab, of course. But my mother, yeah, she would worry as long as I reached home and I said, okay, I've arrived. She would always be just anxious, with no mobile phone. So you had no way to contact. But I did all that and I never felt anything. I mean, I don't think people made me feel different. So fortunately, I've not faced a glass ceiling. I mean, I've had arguments. I mean, I've had men colleagues or seniors who argued with me and fought with me, not because I was a woman, but because I had a different point of view, and they respected that. So, if you were to ask me, Jagdish, does it exist? I do believe that there is an underrepresentation of women in key roles. I think there are times when women get passed over for promotions, not because I think there is a gender bias, but I just think because Sometimes men feel that women may not be able to give that kind of time, and sometimes women feel that their other parts of their lives should take a precedence. So in balancing, sometimes women give up multiple roles. I mean, they can't, if they can't balance doing multiple roles well, then they give up. And sometimes men do feel. So is it correct? As a woman, my thoughts on this are that it is very important to create a place for women to succeed in all fields, not only in corporate, in all fields. Why? Because uh, only when you have gender diversity that you will have different leadership styles. You will have a diverse culture. You will have diverse practices. And if you see, um, in most corporates, I've seen most corporate environments are, um, the style of leadership or functioning is a alpha male type, which is shark or aggression. Where, and I think there is a place for aggression and shark behavior in business, obviously, because it is business. But I also feel that there is an equal place for the feminine, which is not the gender feminine. What I mean is the nurturing, the inclusiveness, because any good leaders qualities, if you were to look at, then the nurturing and inclusiveness is a very important leadership quality, as important as acquisition, as important as meeting targets, as important as growth or scale. Because only, see, while other aspects in business, all the other resources in business, whether it is capital, okay, all these are inanimate, but the biggest resource, I wouldn't want to call human a resource, but the biggest possibility is only with human beings, because business as an entity cannot work by itself. It is the human beings, right, that make it work. And if inclusiveness or nurturing or growth is not an important element of leadership, then you are actually missing a very big point, which is every human is a possibility. It's a huge, huge miss. And the alpha male type of leadership always misses this point. And therefore, when you have women and men in leadership roles or at every level, you are having the possibility of having different leadership styles function, and which is more wholesome, which is more holistic, which is more um, um, human growth oriented. So I would say to women, I mean, I haven't reached such heights that I want to give any advice, to be honest. I'm also learning. But I would just want to say one thing to women, that just be yourself. Just be true to the core of what you are. You don't need to wear, if you're comfortable with Western, you can wear Western. If you're comfortable with Indian, you can wear Indian. If you're comfortable with Indian ideology, it's perfect. If you're okay with Western ideology, it's perfect. There is no one thing that's right or wrong. Just be true to what you are. Be true to your core. If you see ISRO women scientists, they're the ones, it just makes my heart so proud and happy when I see ISRO women scientists. They're all wearing saris, having a gajra in their hair, and they're launching large spaceships. This is what celebrating womanhood is about. Not getting stereotyped, not getting typecast, just being true to what you are.
No, I think this is absolutely fantastic, and as Ravi says, a balanced view on gender diversity. I remember you saying that that many times it's in the mind, and I think when we start typecasting ourselves in certain ways, or when we start stereotyping. So one is others is stereotyping you. The worst is when you start stereotyping yourself in
Having
terms of
yourself.
what you
Absolutely.
cannot do, or what you should not do, like those can, should, and all those kind of
Yeah.
stereotype. But that's excellent, Kalpana. Now, at this point, I want to just call out to all the audience. Thanks for all your comments and playbacks. And if you have any questions for Kalpana, please keep shooting. We are reading and bringing it up here, and we'll pick it up. So, Kalpana, let's move to the next one, which is your transition to philanthropy. You gave it up all in terms of the money, power, and all of that, and became a volunteer when you were at the top of your game. Take us through a little bit deeper into a more zoom in into what that process was, and and how you discovered your life purpose.
Honestly, it was not like a aha moment or anything. It's just that I think from my childhood, I was always looking at something which would be different from my routines. So, like while you studied, you got married, you had kids, you did your job, but somehow something was always missing in my experience, and I was not able to pinpoint what it was. I would read J. Krishnamurti's books and go and visit him when he would come once in a year to India. And whenever I would see his eyes, I felt there was something in them which I want that. I don't know what it was. It was just that he had found that deep, um, something within himself, which I was looking for. And I never knew what it was and how to get it. It's just that by a chance, as I said, when I went on sabbatical, this I went into this yoga program because one of my friends said it's happening, and I said okay. My expectations were not to find something very big or anything. I just went there to bend and stretch. But I got introduced to something which was called Shunya meditation, and it was something which really made a huge difference to me. That time I felt, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. I didn't know what to do earlier, but here I'd found a tool, and it was as scientific a tool as it could be. Because if you see yoga, it is a technology. There are, of course, subjective dimensions to it, but if one wants to even practice it like technology, one can, because there are tools and they work. And if you see Sadhguru, what he says is that even Gautam Buddha was, in a way, scientist, because everything he put down as sutras were clinical. That if you did this, if this would happen. And here I had this tool in my hand, and it was so simple. It was just so simple. And I felt, wow, this was amazing. So that was when my journey started to go deeper and deeper inside. And I went through a lot of experimentation and learning. But at that phase, it was an amazing, it was like a sponge, just imbibing, experimenting, wondering whether this works for me, how it works, what doesn't work. But tremendous amount of learning and introspection and reflection, and then it stuck. And uh, I think it just unleashed something huge, because I realized that I was bound by certain mindsets and locks within me, and these tools were somehow just unlocking everything. So then I was free. I didn't know why. I know we build walls around ourselves of things that we feel we can do, we can't do, opinions. And here I was just set free. And I just love that feeling of homecoming and just being free and just being exuberant. Nothing big will need to happen if you still want to be joyous or exuberant. Just life itself, just a regular life itself was amazing. And so I think I just continued, and I think I will continue.
Okay. Yeah. So now that you are into philanthropy, and right in the beginning, actually, you mentioned something about the technology never leaves you. So how do you see from where you are today in terms of using technology for human well-being and for the larger public good? And as you look back, what advice would today's Kalpana give to the younger Kalpana of 10 years back? Actually, these are two questions.
Right. Mm, so while see, I mean, if you just look at last 1.5 years, right? Technology has saved the world. Imagine otherwise lockdown, and yet most work in corporates happen. Of course, not at the same pace. Initially, we all struggled because we were all very used to in-person working. Some companies were working from home, but most companies, at least in financial services, working from home was a taboo. But so we worked, right, and the technology saved us the vaccine in the shortest possible time, everything. So I mean, yeah, technology is playing a role which is just like unprecedented. Some aspects of it, like the how much we struggled as CIOs, at least I remember, bringing the digital transformation or the digital mindset in the employees. Pandemic has been the biggest guru. It has changed the entire behavior, and technology adoption has been great. So while we look at all technologies helping do a lot of efficiency, bring a lot of efficiency, bring a lot of transformation, we're looking at many things, right? I mean, driverless cars and space travels and wearables, and I mean, name it and all. It's all wonderful. But unless technology changes or or impacts the man on the street or the man in on the farmland, and I'm not saying that it needs to be mutually exclusive. While we pander, on everybody's what do you say, fascination for gizmos and the sexy and the shiny things, all this technology will be of no use unless it brings human well-being. And I'm sure there are many technologies that are directed towards that. And the biggest one which we experienced is the telemedicine. Pandemic made that happen. However, there's a lot that one could do, because if state of art healthcare is available even to the man who's in the remotest of locations, then it's worthwhile. Otherwise, we are not doing what is needed. Also, a very important thing which has come to the forefront with this pandemic is the kind of problems that we have with urbanization. And therefore, if technology can be used to divorce the physical location from economic prosperity, it is so important, because then you will have good jobs available in far-flung locations, and will improve the quality of life for millions of people. And therefore, if we can work on these technologies to help sustain and provide jobs and skills and education to the remotest part, and I think Sadhguru speaks so passionately about it, because this can actually create a lot of balance between urban and rural areas, and bring economic prosperity and equal opportunity in far-flung areas. So this, I felt, is also very important. And also smart agriculture. While we talk about everything, smart cities, smart this, all are very important, no doubt. But smart agriculture, because then these technologies will help the man who puts the food on your table, right? Whether it's smart irrigation, it is monitoring and controlling, fertilizers water required, and for these fields or crops, sensors. I mean, all these, and make it so simple for use that even the last mile has an access to it. So these are some of the thoughts that I had in terms of what where we need to also look at technology initiatives.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. In fact, I feel a little bit jealous sometimes. In our school group, I studied in Almora, which is a small town in Uttarakhand, and we all keep reviewing that, we are not able to visit the place more often, and and we keep making plans year after year that we'll do a reunion somewhere nearby. And now I see that with this pandemic continuing, some of us have actually gone back and started working from there. And it's not just that you're working from there. Then you also have a life where you are also inspiring other people. You are also interacting with other people, and you're able to do something beyond work, and that adds to the ecosystem in these places. But that's a great point, Kalpana. And I think all great points around the smart agriculture. If we can use water more efficiently, I think the way agriculture has been run in our country, the water tables have kept going down. There's enormous use of unintelligent use of water in agriculture, and that's something that can be addressed via technology. And of course, telemedicine is a great possibility for people in remote areas. So now coming to one of my questions, Kalpana. In fact, that was a different discussion we were having, and I related it so much to a change management. Whenever we talk of technology, we talk of change management, and you said something very, very deep, which kind of stuck to me about the horse versus bicycle. Why don't you talk about it in the context of organization change management?
So I wouldn't take credit for the originality of this idea. I was in one of the sessions, the leadership, ISHA runs a leadership academy called ISHA Leadership Academy. There was one of the sessions in which Sadhguru basically said this, and it really struck me. So what he said was that, organizations need to look at themselves as organisms, because when you are an organism, you are basically, you respond to the external stimulus immediately, or you adjust, you recalibrate, and you are agile. And also, so this was, it is in this context that he had mentioned that there is a difference between organism and organization. And the example he gave really stuck to me. He said that, it's like this, that when you are riding a bicycle, it's easy because it's just 1 2 3, you should know the process and it will happen, because bike does not have its own mind. But when you are a leader in an organization, you are riding a horse. Horse has his own mind, and therefore you cannot ride it like a bicycle. I think it was just so deep and so brilliant that it resonated so much with me, that most of us tend to make this mistake of treating human beings around us like resources, and therefore not as possibilities. And we believe that we are riding a bicycle, especially in an M&A situation, Jagdish. Right? When we try and integrate technology or whatever, whether finance, or we integrate the teams between the merged companies, we always believe that XYZ will work. If we were to just take it as an organism, then we will be so sensitive to the human aspect of integration, the difference in the culture. How do you bring it about? Because the acquiring company may feel like an Alexander, but the company that is getting acquired, their employees are going through a lot of insecurity, anxiety, and therefore, are we mindful of that fact? And are we using this organism example there? So that was what it really resonated so much with me. And I wish I had this insight when I was in active work life.
Yeah. It really struck me, when you first time you said it, and it's that the people that you're managing, they're not just Excel and PowerPoints; they are real human beings, and you got to be sensitive to the fact that whatever you do, whatever way you touch them, right? I mean, there will be a reaction.
Yes.
It won't just be like you move your handle and the cycle will go one way, and therefore that for successful leadership, it's a very important aspect to understand and empathize with that horse as to how it is going to react, and how much gentle you can be. Right? I mean, with a cycle or bike, you can be as rough as you want. but
Yeah.
not with a horse. It will throw you off your back.
If horse decides to go in another direction, how do you slowly get it back to the
Correct.
right direction?
Absolutely, absolutely. A horse can throw you off its back, and that's
Yes.
probably many times that happens in in organizational initiatives where when you are not sensitive to the horse, that these initiatives get derailed. So, Kalpana, I will. I think I'm at the end of my questions. I'm quickly browsing through the audience comments. So, thanks Rajiv, Divya, Sajid, Shashi, Ankur, Pankaj, Rakesh, Parthsarthi, Divakar, Amit. Um, yeah, then there's Arun and Balaji. Balaji, thanks for that comment. Yeah, I think this then the Seagull story, uh, it has inspired a generation actually. How it's like when you were saying Kalpana that it's all about eat, live, sleep. It's like life is much beyond 9 to 5, right? It's a pursuit, and it's an exploration. So yeah, there's a comment from Makarand Joshi. If you're from a non-IT background, you have a chance of becoming a CIO. That's kind of a comment. So Kalpana, you want to respond to that?
I wouldn't say that, but I would just think that coming from business background or understanding of business background always helps everybody, whether it's a CIO or a CFO or a HR person. So yes, because see, I mean, my experience was that I had a wonderful team that filled up for my lack of hardcore technical knowledge, because I didn't have any. I was not an engineer. I was just a business person, just trying to apply technology to solve business problems. I don't know whether I did well or I did not do well. I just did my best. I know that. I enjoyed it and I did my best. Maybe somebody else who would have been a hardcore technology guy would have done differently, probably. So I don't think there is a rule that somebody succeeds only because if they're a non-technology person. But if a technology person can bring the breadth of looking at things, right? Because technology is a vertical; it's more deep. But if they can bring the breadth of being able to, so there is a very beautiful way of looking at it. There is a Garud Drashti and there is Sarp Drashti. So a hardcore technology person has Sarp Drishti, which is a ground level understanding of technology, which is also very important because without that you cannot actually function. But a Garud Drashti is very important. So generally, if you see management studies aims to bring a Garud Drashti, which is a bigger picture. You are flying and you are having a view of the entire landscape, whereas Sarpa Drishti is focused down. So any specialization helps you build Sarpadrishti. Any general management or any other study brings you the Garud Drashti. So a combination of these two is very important. So if a hardcore technology person goes and gets an MBA or any other degree, not necessarily a degree, you can just do an experience, but brings that Garud Drashti, they can succeed extremely. In fact, they can do better than even the non-technology CIO. That's what I feel. Because you have the possibilities of both, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's also a very good reminder to all of us that eventually, every single function is solving business problems. It is solving for taking organization from point A to point B, whatever is the vision. And if you are doing it in isolation, which sometimes, I see, as tech guys with our Sarpatrishti, we tend to like go so deep into the nuances of the technology that we lose Garud Drishti. And I think it's not about technology being a technology person or a business person. It's just that if you have handled business in any form, whether in a tech role or a business role, your ability to see the larger point of view of business and how technology plugs into into the business functions and strategy for success, I think that just improves.
Yeah. Jagdish, I'm sorry, I forgot one of the questions that you had asked me, that if Kalpana were to look at 10 years back, what would I do? This is exactly what I would change. And Makarand, I think maybe this can help you. this was a question. The one thing that I would do if I were to live my role as a CIO or any other business leader is to go and listen to the customer, talk to the customer, just keep talking to the customer, because if the insights are coming only from your businesses as to what is needed, then it is just one view. I would keep talking and sitting maybe in IVRs or looking at customer complaint mails or going and visiting a customer or talking to a customer. I would just do this. If you do this, everything falls in place.
No,
So this is
absolutely.
what I would change.
Yeah, and I always tell people that you should do something like an hour in a customer's life or a day in a customer's life where you're just an observer. Don't try to preach or tell people how to do things or how to use technology. Just go and see how they use it. And whenever I have done Kalpana, I have found that people use technology only about 10 to 15% of their overall work time. I mean, unless you, of course, you are in a very, very tech-heavy, scenario like a BPO. But like, for example, a dealership or a finance function or a manufacturing function, and just understanding that 90% of what people do when they're not on the computer or when they're not handling data, that really provides the overall perspective and context to what should be done in that 10% that they are using. I think that sometimes we miss. But thanks for being you know thanks for being very frank about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it typically happens, as we go higher up, we start losing touch with the
Yes.
ground and with the customers. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So there is one question from Pawan. I think young generation plan being and don't have any patience. You were mentioned about losing father at young age and having gone through anxiety phase. What is the message for young people if going through similar trauma situations? I can see so many up and down, and you always come out successfully.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I won't claim to know it all, but I can just say one thing that um, the external situation, and this is the biggest learning that I got from inner engineering. This is one of the programs that ISHA I did early years in my early years, is that the external situation is never in your control. You may lose a loved one, you may lose a job that you loved, or you may lose your wealth. You can lose many things. Um, so external situation can never be in your control. Like for this pandemic, I'm telling you, the entire world is frustrated, right? Everybody in the world is frustrated because they don't know when this is ever going to end. And yet we are all living, right? Because there is no, I mean, it is there. It's there, but the external situation is never in your control. It is only your inner situation that you can manage. So the inner engineering taught me this, that most of us engineer our lives outside. Whether you want a big car, you want a job, you want something, whatever, paycheck, you marry, whatever, your children, all this is all external, right? And I'm not saying that it is small, it is needed. That's what life is about. But the internal situation, how you deal with anything which is externally not going your way, how do you deal with it is definitely in your control. And that is, once I started to learn to manage that aspect well, then whether it was a curve ball or it was a straight ball, I just picked it up, I just did what was needed. So I think this basically, so these tools, whether tools for transformation, we talk about business transformation using technology, we use process re-engineering for business transformation, but none of us spend enough time for our own inner transformation. So once you learn that, then everything is okay. You will just glide with it, whatever comes your way. As I said, the illusion story says, right, that the creature just left the clinging to the rock. The wave lashed it. Again, it got up. Again, it moved. But because the creature let it go, it traveled and saw different places. Otherwise, it would be just clinging the rock. This is what I think I learned, and this is
Yeah,
probably what young people can learn.
and then I'll connect it with what you said earlier. The pain is inevitable, suffering is not. Yeah, and since the question came, I can also share with everyone here. It was on Wednesday morning that I lost my brother-in-law, and he was under my and my wife's care, my wife's brother, for about last 8 months. And I've been in hospital since Saturday. I haven't been home since Sunday. And I actually then he is from Baroda, so I came to Baroda. And this session, actually, I'm running from Baroda. And I wasn't very sure whether we'll be able to run this session with the situation at home. And I told Kalpana that, hey, Kalpana, I'm not too sure. But then, I kind of closed my eyes and I said, if he would have been around, what would he have advised me? And I think he would have said, no, life has to go on. And I think that's one big thing that I'm learning. And he has a small daughter, and she tells us every hour that life has to go on, because she's like, she has the whole house up, on top, with her tantrums and her laughter and everything. Yeah, so what's happening is happening. We can't control it, but there's something that we got to do. I mean, I had to run this. Of course, the announcement took some time just because of that dilemma, but we decided to have it. And Kalpana, thanks for waiting for so long, for me to announce and make up my mind. But yeah, we just deal with it. And
I think this was amazing, Jagdish. When you told me, I was really quite. I would say that it's something wonderful that when you thought about it, that he would have wanted me to continue. That's why I want to continue. I think that was a great thought.
yeah, and he used to follow. We used to be, as I said, he was under our care, and he would be sitting in the drawing room. I would be sitting in my workplace in the bedroom, and run this. And he would be actually watching the entire ClarITea chat, sitting wherever he was sitting. And I'm sure, that he would have liked me to do the same thing what I did. Yeah, so we deal with life as it comes. As again, I will repeat it, and I've kind of underlined it. Pain is inevitable, suffering is not. So on that note, thank you, Kalpana, so much for all these insights, and I would say a lot of wisdom beyond even like managing technology, like about inner technology, how to manage, how to let go, and still build a great career, how to contribute, to organizations as well as to society, and I think a great learning for everyone. Thank you, Kalpana, and thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you for hearing me. I don't know whether I can be. I mean, we didn't have any technology talk, but I think I'm hoping that it was enriching for all of you. Just sharing perspectives of what worked for me.
Yeah, but Kalpana, I'm sure, as I told you before, also, the audience drives their own conclusions. So some of the conclusions that I can think of are, solving business problems, continuously doing it at a bigger scale, and uh, taking life and career as it comes, doing what it requires, and like Jonathan Livingston Seagull, keep flying higher.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Jagdish.
thank you, Kalpana, and thank you, all the audience. Thank you for your comments and your engagement. Bye bye till next Saturday.
Thank you, everyone.